The comic book market is absolutely booming right now, especially for key comics associated with characters that are already in the MCU. But what about the characters who have yet to make their debut in the MCU? Those are the books with the greatest potential ROI. And today we're talking about Nova and all the keys associated with them that you might want to pick up now before prices go through the roof. And there's something for every budget in this one, so stay tuned.
Comically correct comics.
First of all, before we start the video, I want to announce that this Friday, March 12th, at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, I am going to have a live sale over on my Instagram. I would love to see you guys there. If you haven't ever attended an Instagram live sale, they are a lot of fun. It's a fantastic way to get some great deals on some books. I'm going to be handing out some amazing deals on books, slabs, raw books, keys, specs, you name it. We're going to have it, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I hope to see you there. If you don't have an Instagram yet, create an account. Get on there. Make me your first friend, and I will show you around Instagram. And tune into that live sale this Friday, March 12th at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We usually go, last time we went like 4 hours. So if you're wrapping up at work, just log on when you get home, and I hope to see you there. Nova is a character that I consider to be pretty much a slam dunk to be coming to the MCU, who hasn't made his debut yet. Nova is a character that Marvel has used for decades, and they're obviously super invested in the cosmic comic universe. Nova also has really strong ties to the Guardians of the Galaxy, and Kevin Feige has even gone on record to say that Nova has immediate potential to come to the MCU. Now, he also said that Doctor Strange had immediate potential to come to the MCU, and it took another 8 years before the first movie was made. So the term immediate potential is completely relative. But let's look at what we do know. So we do know that Marvel maintains its stance to use Nova in the MCU. We do know that they even laid the foundation for this in 2018 with Avengers Infinity War. We do know that Nova has strong ties to the Guardians of the Galaxy, and we do know that the Guardians of the Galaxy have a new movie slated already. So which version of Nova is going to make it to the MCU? Because there are several different versions of Nova in the comic books. There's Richard Rider, the original Nova that was introduced in the 70s, and there's Sam Alexander, the new Nova that was introduced in 2012. And when Kevin Feige was asked directly which version of Nova would be coming to the MCU, he hinted at the fact that they would both be coming to the MCU. And that actually makes a lot of sense to me. The original Nova has a huge history and this big background with the Marvel Universe. And so I could see him coming to a movie on the big screen. And then I can see the new Nova, Sam Alexander. He's the Latino teenage version of Nova. And he's super popular right now in the current Marvel comic continuity. I could see Sam Alexander coming to like a Disney Plus show with like a next gen superhero team or something like that. And there's actually totally possible that they will both be in the MCU at the same time because they're different characters. They're just closely related. Now, let's talk about an extremely unfortunate choice of names for the first Nova in Richard Rider. We all know what the very common nickname for Richard is, right? Dick, especially in the 70s. So could it be that we have a Dick Rider coming to the MCU? Do you think that I am completely off base for thinking that this will even be a thing? When I think about Dick Rider coming to the MCU, I just see memes galore. I see the internet going crazy with Dick Rider in the MCU. But I'm curious to know what you guys think. Leave a comment down below. Do you think that is even going to be a thing? Is it even going to be a blip on the radar? Or is it just completely going to go unnoticed that it's Richard Rider? I'm curious to know what you guys think. All right, so let's start with the first one, which is the big boy book, the key to own when it comes to Nova keys. And that is Nova #1, the first appearance of Richard Rider. And so it's also the first appearance of Zor, Nova Prime, and Ginger J. And there's a couple other things going on with this book as well, but this was released in 1976. I have always had my eye on this book. I've always wanted it in the PC. And ever since it was back at around a $500 book for a CGC 9.8. And I decided to pull the trigger on this when I saw CGC 9.8 copies start selling for over $1,400. And so I bought this CBCS graded copy for $1,185. And that same day, this book started selling for over $1,700 in a CGC 9.8, and now it's selling for consistently around $1,800, and you can't even find one listed for less than $2,000. I don't know what it was that made this book just go crazy, that seemed to come out of nowhere. But what I think is happening is all of the other blue chip keys, the other reliable investments in major first appearances are getting so crazy and getting so far out of reach that people are starting to look at this book because it was, way more reasonable than those really big keys. That's the only thing I can think to explain this crazy jump in price. There's been no new news about this book. It's just the same old rumors. And I'm always glad and happy to pick up a CBCS copy if I can get it for at least 20% off of a CGC price. I'll gladly own a CBCS in that case. So I do think that 17 to 1800 is the new low for a CGC 9.8 of this book, and I think that price will be eclipsed when an announcement is made that Richard Rider or Nova, either Nova, whether it's Sam or Richard, comes to the MCU. This is the key to have because it's the character's first appearance. So this is the slam dunk best key to have with all of the Nova keys, and I think that the price will be magnitudes more than it is now when there's an announcement made that he's coming to the MCU. So the second book on the list is actually Nova #2. It is the only book that I don't have here in front of me. I actually just ordered a copy off of eBay, and it's interesting. I have all of the keys now, one on the way, that I'm going to mention in this video, and I just wanted to mention that because I put my money where my mouth is with these specs. Usually what ends up happening is I'd start doing research for a video like this, and I start looking up all these keys, and I end up finding them on the internet when I'm looking up prices, and I end up buying them. So, Nova #2 is the second appearance of Nova, the first appearance of Condor, and the first appearance of Powerhouse. And anytime the first appearance of a character starts to get out of hand, people tend to go towards the second appearance, and that's what we could possibly have with Nova #2. Now, I was looking for a CGC 9.8 because I wanted to grab one, but I couldn't find any because there's only 35 on the CGC census as compared to 477 of issue #1 at a 9.8. So there's 35 9.8s for #2, 477 9.8s for #1. I don't think that has to do with the rarity of the book. I just think that up until this point, there really wasn't a reason to slab and grade the second appearance of Nova. That could be changing. We could see a whole bunch more near mint 9.8 copies come to market. We will see. I went ahead and grabbed a 9.6 for $88 because I thought, why not? And also because it has these classic B-tier villains, and I'm a big fan of B-tier villains. Nova #2 has the two B-tier villains, first appearance, Condor and Powerhouse. Now, the Condor has the power of flight via wings, and he is of the species bird people. And his main powers, include things like swooping and diving, things along those lines. Just your classic B-tier villain. At one point, the Condor was actually turned into a condor, the bird, and then he was turned back into a semi-human. And so just classic B-tier villain stuff. Glad to have a 9.6 in the PC, especially for $88. I mean, I could see that book easily doubling if something happens with Nova. And so I thought, why not? Also in my research, I came across Nova #3 in a CGC 9.8. It was listed for $120 or best offer. I offered $100. They accepted it. And I'm like, hell yes. $100 for the third appearance of Nova. And it's another B-tier villain. It's the first appearance of Diamond Head. And at one point, Diamond Head, the Condor, and Powerhouse formed their own supervillain team called the Terrible Trio. Classic B-tier villain stuff. Obviously, it didn't turn out well for the terrible trio, because, you know, the whole Condor thing and him turning back into a bird. It's kind of hard to have a supervillain team when one of them's a bird. But anyways, super glad to pick this up just to have in the PC. Nova number 3 and a CGC 9A. So there's actually a ton of B tier villains that appear in the Nova series, in all of the Nova series. And I wouldn't go too crazy on them, okay? Like, don't go too crazy on these first appearance keys for the Nova run. I really don't think at this point that any of them really have legs, at least not to make recommendations at this point. You never know. Something could happen. But at this point, for the first series, my only two recommendations are number 1 and number 2 in super high grade. Lower grade is more prevalent, and it's those 9.8s that are a lot harder to come by. Next, we have point 1, number 1. All right. Now, this is the first appearance of the new Nova, Sam Alexander. And there's some other stuff going on with this book as well. There's also a variant cover, which I'll throw up here. The variant cover goes for a little bit more than this cover. I actually paid $200 for this. I think that's a reasonable price right now. I think that will definitely go up if anything happens with Sam Alexander in the MCU. Remember, Sam Alexander is the Latino teenager version of Nova, and so it is a little bit more of a risk, because if nothing happens with Sam, this book doesn't have a huge potential, but Sam Alexander is a huge figure in Marvel Comics continuity. So even if he doesn't come to the screen, he has a future with superhero teams like the Champions. I think he was also in the New Warriors. It's still a good book to have, and I'm definitely recommending it here as a spec for him coming to the MCU. I think that is coming. So this issue was a one-shot, and Marvel has done 3.1 one-shots. They did Marvel Point 1, they did All New Marvel Point 1, which is the first appearance of Kamala Khan, and they did All New, All Different Marvel Point 1. And they're coming out with next month, All New, All Different, not the same Marvel Point 1. No, I'm just kidding. But anyways, my point is that there's been 3 Marvel Point 1s, and they're all key issues, 2 of them being major keys. This one, the first appearance of Sam Alexander, and All New Marvel Point 1, the first appearance of Kamala Khan, which is, I think, well over $1,000 right now in a CGC 9.8. So my point is this: if they come out with another Marvel Point 1, pre-order the crap out of that book, because why not? You know, all 3 of them at this point have had first appearances, and they seem to reserve them for one-shots like this. It seems like a slam dunk. All right, and lastly, we have Nova number 1, the 5th series from 2013, and this is the first solo series of Sam Alexander, the new Nova. It's also the first appearance of Sam's parents, and it's the first appearance of Sam's sister. Now, Marvel is making a huge point for next-gen superheroes, and I guess you could say this is a next-gen spec because of Nova's little sister, but I think that's kind of a stretch. It's kind of a reach. Just consider that first appearance of Sam's sister and parents as a bonus for this book, because you can still get this book for cover price or less. And I went out and bought a whole bunch of copies of this, because I think I can totally see this book going in the footsteps of books like Invincible Iron Man number 1, that first ongoing series featuring Riri Williams, which is now solidly a $15 to $25 book raw. So this is your chance to get this book at cover price or less. That could easily become a $25 book if Sam makes his appearance in the MCU. Now, there are some incentives and a second printing. The second printing is the money book. It has the blue bar down at the bottom, fetches quite a bit more money, and is definitely more rare to find that second print. But there's also a 1 in 50, which I'll throw up here. It's the Martin 1 in 50. And there's also the 1 in 75, which is this one. The Quesada color 1 in 75. And there's also a Quesada sketch 1 in 150, like this one here. So those are some options there for volume 5 of Nova number 1 from 2013. And there's some other series of Nova that have come out. There's volumes 1 through, I believe, 7 at this point. But really, there's only those 4 books in all of the Nova series that I'm recommending here as a spec. Nova number 1 from the first series, Nova number 2 from the first series, and Nova number 1 from the 5th series, and Marvel Point 1, the first appearance of Sam Alexander. Those 4 books are really my top recommendations for the Nova series. There may be others that come up down the line, but isn't it kind of refreshing that there's not 100 key, super important key first appearances or key issues for a run, that you can hedge all your bets, I believe, on these 4 books. Kind of refreshing with all the different stuff going on right now in the collectible market. So that's it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Don't sleep on these Nova keys. And if any of you have a number 2 in a CGC 9.8, please hit me up. I would love to have that in my PC. I need that first appearance of Condor. Or if one of you find one and can show it to me before I found it myself, I'll be glad to kick down something your way for finding that book for me. But it's got to be in a CGC 9.8. There's plenty of raw copies. There's plenty of 9.6s, but there's only 35 9.8s on the census, and I haven't seen one yet. So if you find one, please let me know. Thanks so much for stopping by, and we'll catch you in the next video. Bye.
Comically correct comics.